The sun had barely crested the horizon, yet the quiet street seemed unnaturally heavy that morning, as if the world itself was holding its breath. Mark Caldwell, a 38-year-old father with short brown hair and a light stubble, trudged along the cracked sidewalk with his 8-year-old daughter, Lily. His faded blue denim jacket hung loosely over a gray hoodie, dark jeans slightly worn at the knees, brown boots scuffing against the concrete. Lily, her shoulder-length wavy brown hair bouncing slightly with each step, wore her favorite red long-sleeve sweater, blue jeans, and white sneakers, her curious, empathetic face scanning the world like a miniature guardian angel. They were on their usual morning walk, the sky painted with soft oranges and yellows, when something caught their attention. A figure slumped against the side of a weathered brick wall, almost invisible beneath the shadows of an overgrown alley. If you believe in kindness and second chances, hit that like button, comment your thoughts, share this story with someone who needs a reminder of human goodness, and subscribe to Soul of Light. The stranger's dark green jacket was torn, black pants dusted with dirt, her messy dark hair falling over a pale, weary face. She was barely conscious, one hand pressed weakly to her side where a thin streak of blood had seeped through her jacket. Mark's stern but kind expression shifted immediately into concern. Lily's small hand found his, gripping tightly, eyes wide but unwavering. Without a word, Mark knelt beside the woman, feeling the weight of responsibility pressed down on him. He could see faint bruising on her cheeks, her breathing shallow, labored. The first thought that struck him was the impossibility of ignoring her. Someone was in need, and the world had no business passing her by. Lily crouched beside them, her tiny fingers brushing against the stranger's cold arm. "Dad, she's scared," she whispered, voice trembling but steady. Mark's chest tightened. He had spent the last 5 years raising Lily alone after the sudden loss of her mother, learning the delicate balance of protecting her while allowing her to grow empathy. He had never felt a moment so pure in its raw need for courage, so he gently lifted the woman, supporting her fragile frame. She groaned softly, her eyes fluttering open, revealing a mix of panic and relief. Mark carried her toward their car parked at the end of the street, careful not to jostle her injuries, while Lily walked beside them, her gaze never leaving the stranger's face. The morning sun warmed their skin, and yet there was no warmth in her hollow eyes. In the back of his mind, Mark fought with the questions that always haunted him when life demanded immediate action. Would he be able to help? Did he have the strength to do this right? But Lily's tiny presence reminded him that courage was not absence of fear, it was action in spite of it. By the time they reached the hospital, the stranger's breaths had grown more erratic, her energy nearly spent. Mark's hands shook as he helped her onto a stretcher, exchanging hurried words with the paramedics, who looked at him with quiet admiration for his resolve. Lily stood at his side, clinging to the edge of the stretcher, tears welling in her wide eyes. She whispered again, "She's going to be okay, right?" Mark nodded, though his heart was still tethered to doubt. The hours that followed were a blur of white walls, sterile lights, and anxious waiting. Mark and Lily paced the waiting room, watching the sun climb higher in the sky, marking time with hope and fear. When the doctors finally emerged, relief washed over Mark. The woman, whose name they learned was Evelyn, had stabilized. She was weak, yes, but alive. The sense of quiet triumph in that moment was almost unbearable, the kind that fills your chest so completely it aches. Mark looked down at Lily, who had been silently holding onto his jacket, and saw reflected in her eyes the understanding that kindness could truly change a life. Over the next few weeks, Evelyn became a quiet presence in their home. She had nowhere else to go, and Mark knew the world had already given her enough cruelty. She moved slowly at first, the weight of her injuries and exhaustion heavy on her shoulders, but Lily insisted on helping, bringing her soup, reading aloud, sharing the small, radiant joy of childhood. There were mornings when Evelyn would simply sit by the window, staring at the sunlight bouncing off the leaves, a trace of a smile tugging at the corners of her mouth. And sometimes she would simply hold Lily's small hand, as if drawing strength from the innocence and empathy she saw there. Mark's life, once defined by routine and quiet grief, began to shift in ways he hadn't anticipated. The small house felt fuller, the days richer, layered with new laughter and cautious hope. He watched Evelyn slowly regain her strength, watched her rediscover the courage she had long believed lost. In turn, she reminded Mark and Lily of the fragile beauty of human connection, the way it could take a battered, broken person and gently, insistently breathe life back into their world. One bright afternoon, Evelyn decided she wanted to contribute in the only way she could. She began helping at the local shelter, volunteering with others who were struggling. Mark and Lily often joined her, and together the three of them became an unspoken team, their days a delicate balance of work, healing, and shared purpose. People in the community began to notice, whispers of astonishment passing through neighbors, a single father, his young daughter, and a once dying stranger, creating a bond that transcended ordinary understanding. And yet, the story's power was not just in Evelyn's recovery or their newfound sense of family. It was in the subtle transformations, the way Mark learned to let someone else lean on him for a change, the way Lily's heart expanded to include someone who had nothing but fear and pain, and the way Evelyn rediscovered trust, humanity, and a second chance at life. The world, it seemed, had paused to witness a small miracle unfold in plain daylight, ordinary streets, and quiet acts of courage. If this story touched your heart, please like, share, and subscribe to Soul of Light, and let others feel the warmth of hope, kindness, and second chances. Before the ending, I have a special request. Leave a comment below telling us how you've seen kindness change someone's life. It could inspire someone today. Mark, Lily, and Evelyn never claimed heroism. They simply acted when it mattered, guided by empathy and courage. On a golden morning, with sunlight spilling over the streets like a benediction, they walked together, a small trio whose lives had collided in the harshest moment and yet emerged stronger, gentler, forever changed. And though no one could predict the future, one truth remained crystal clear. Sometimes the act of simply stopping, of choosing to care, is enough to leave everyone stunned.